Hi Mama, you're listening to the Mama podcast. It's Sumaya here, the co-founder of Mama Emmy app. Mama Emmy is the first app to exclusively connect mothers across the Middle East, connect with like-minded mamas and create lifelong friendships. At Mama, we are all about connecting mamas to empower women. So let's join together and make this mission a reality. I'm so excited to be able to bring you the Real Moms series, and this week I'm joined by Maria, who will be sharing her mom's story and her labour and what she's been up to during the pandemic and afterwards as well, raising a little boy. Thank you so much for taking your time today and joining me, because I know you've got a really young baby and we'll get into that in a second, and I really appreciate your time because I know how difficult it is in those early days to make the time.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an absolute pleasure. And yes, I do have a really young baby. He's just recently completed 2 months, but I'm excited to have this chat with you.
Yeah, I mean, 2 months and just coming out of, I guess, a pandemic. So I'm assuming your experience is obviously different to what my experience was. And I'm really intrigued to find out how you felt during the sort of the pandemic and being pregnant and then having to go through that labor process during the whole pandemic.
Yeah. Well, so obviously, we have plans and we have expectations of what our pregnancy is going to be like. And then having this kind of external circumstance change things and shift things does affect us. And it's basically our expectations of what we want things to be. And then that gets affected. It's I don't want to cry and crib because obviously I had it, pretty good. I didn't suffer like how other people have suffered emotionally and financially and mentally. But it's just like all of us have certain expectations, and if those aren't met, we do get mentally disturbed. Like for me, I knew for a fact that my brother was going to fly down when I gave birth. My grandmom, my mom's mother, was going to fly down and be with us. And all of that couldn't happen. In my last 2 months of pregnancy, I couldn't attend all my yoga classes. I couldn't go for walks, because it was much more important to stay in and stay safe. But obviously, my expectation of what my last few months were going to be were impacted. And then the kind of regulations we had at the hospital, like who could visit, who couldn't, those things, they changed.
So it was mentally like really challenging, as well as I guess physically as well, because you couldn't go out at all. Did you do like different types of exercise, or did you sort of implement something that worked better at home for you, or
I did a lot of yoga at home. I did a lot of meditation. I kept listening to a lot of subliminals, and I think meditation really helped me, come to terms with the fact that, this pandemic is external and I need to focus my energies on, all the things that I can control, and start thinking about the fact that, okay, this is exclusive time with my baby, even though like people can't visit me. I can't go out and, do certain things, but this is exclusive time with my baby. This is time for me to heal. This is family bonding time. And, obviously things will get better and we'll be able to do what we wanted to do in a while. So it was just about getting through those tough months.
I think it's a really good way of looking at it, right? Because if you look at the positives, then it makes it so much easier to deal with. So you said that you did a lot of subliminals. Did you do sort of hypnobirthing, or was it just meditation?
Yeah, I did research hypnobirthing. I didn't get a chance to quite dive deep into it because I discovered it quite at the end. Right. And I didn't want to shift around what my mental state was at that point and then try and learn something new. But I'd already read a couple of books. I had a lot of apps that kept giving me, a decent amount of information and stuff. And I did attend a hypnobirthing class with Shireen from Wise Hippo, and that gave me a little taste of what hypnobirthing feels like. And I felt like I was on my own journey with meditation. So I continued with that. And since hypnobirthing was quite, I came to know about it a little late. So now I know more about it, hopefully with the second baby.
I mean, also meditation, I guess hypnobirthing is a form of meditation.
Exactly.
So it does
So
similar.
I guess it's just about using, whatever tool works for you. If you can find something that works for you, that keeps you on track and positive, and like I would definitely say, like it's very important for any first-time mom to educate and meditate, but obviously don't go looking for, horror stories, because that's not a good idea, but definitely like educate yourself.
Yeah, and there's so many positive birth stories, right? Like everyone talks about all the negative stories, but then
exactly. And I think movies and media really impact us, right? Because what we see is just moms crying, and it's not 5 hours of crying during labor pain. It's a process. It's a journey. You go through a lot before you reach that, those 5 minutes of extreme pain. So yeah, I mean, if I were to talk about my birth experience, so I had an induced labor, and so I labored for a couple of hours, and then since things weren't progressing like the way my doctor wanted to, I had to go in for an emergency C-section. And I am so grateful that all my meditation helped me, stay positive throughout. Like I know my parents came back to me saying like, we were so surprised that you kind of like just breezed through this entire process and you didn't freak out at all. And it was because like I kept telling myself like, I need to do this for my baby.
Yeah.
And it's very easy that when you're going through pain to forget the reason you're doing it.
Yeah.
So if you stay focused on the fact that you're going to have your baby in your arms soon and things are going to be better, and everyone does it. Women's bodies are meant to do this.
Yeah.
So if you keep reminding yourself of those things, I think it really helps you mentally and emotionally.
Absolutely. And I think it's surprising because I mean, I personally did do hypnobirthing before I gave birth to my daughter. And even though you didn't actively do any hypnobirthing course, a lot of the things that you're actually mentioning and talking about are very literally the things that you learn whilst you do your hypnobirthing class.
Yeah.
So to focus on like the positives, to really stay calm. And there's a lot about the types of hormones and things that are released when you're calm and relaxed. So I'm sure that had an impact on how much more relaxed you were. And also I'm sure, I mean, I'm not an expert, but there's information to suggest that your pain is less, or you feel less pain when you're in that kind of mindset, which is really interesting if you think about it. If you can prepare yourself to a point where you actually feel less pain, then that's amazing, right?
Yeah. I guess it's all about that. The entire preparation for birth is about like, anticipating pain. And I realize, so funny thing that I'd like to share, maybe it's too much information for some of the audience, but if you've been laboring for a couple of hours and then they decide to take you in for a C-section, they give you medicines that brings your contractions under control, right? So you can feel that. And then at that point, I could feel less pain, and I couldn't, my brain couldn't process that. I was like, I kept asking my doctor, like, how has my pain suddenly gone down? And she told me that you felt more pain because you were anticipating much more pain for the next couple of hours. And now, because you know that you're going to go in for an operation and, this is going to end soon, your body has already it's at a different stage, and you are feeling less pain because you know that it's going to stop soon.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, it really. Yeah. I mean, I could still feel my contractions. I was at the 10th hour of my labor pain. And like, just because I knew I was going to go in for a C-section, I was then so mentally relaxed. I could have a proper conversation with my doctor and ask her like, how come I'm feeling less pain? And she's like, no, your contractions are still going up. It's just because you know that it's going to end soon, that you're just, in better control of yourself.
That's incredible. So they didn't give you any pain relief at this point? It was just...
No, I didn't go for an epidural because I knew that if I had to go for a C-section, they had to give me an epidural is more general, and for a C-section they give you one of those anesthesias in your lower back that only numbs you your waist down, so that you can actually experience and see your baby after the baby's born.
That's incredible. I mean, it's so interesting that like, just because of your mind shift, because you knew something different was going to happen. I find that really like amazing.
Yeah. And I I kind of, I'm happy. This was the first time I was going under surgery, and I'm happy that my brain was able to process the fact that, okay, I'm going to be numb, so I'm not going to feel anything. And there are doctors here and there are professionals here who are going to help me through everything. So I'm just going to focus on enjoying my birth. Yeah. And,
it's incredible because did you anticipate a natural birth and then you wanted a natural birth, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I did. So that's why, I had an induced labor because I wanted to try and have it naturally. Because of other complications, we couldn't wait for me to complete my 40-week term. So they had to induce me on at my 37th week. And so that's why I wanted to try and have it naturally. But I was okay because even though things didn't go as planned, I felt very good about and very positive about my birth.
That's incredible.
At every decision, at every point, I felt like I had enough information. I had educated myself. I had mustered up the courage to ask my doctor 15 questions at every stage, to make sure that I know what's happening with me.
I think that's really interesting because it's having that courage to ask your doctor because if that makes you feel more confident and comfortable, then you should definitely do that, right? And I know for some women, they don't want to know, and that's fine, if
that's fine, yeah.
They prefer not to know, and that's okay. But if you do prefer to know, if you're one of those people that likes all the information, then it's nice to be able to ask those questions and ask your doctor.
Yeah, and I'd really encourage, so we get overwhelmed because the doctors will usually use terms and technical phrases that we don't understand as common people. But I would encourage anyone to go back to your doctor and ask them to explain what they mean. It's okay if their first instinct is to use that technical term, but you should go back and ask them what it really means and what it's going to what the implications of that are going to be on your pregnancy if you are interested in that information.
It's really interesting that you actually say that because my previous career is being a dentist, and so I've been on the other end of having to explain something slightly more medical. And even though we're trained as medical professionals to say something in layman's terms, which is what the general public should understand, sometimes because you're constantly thinking in this medical mindset, you forget that the other person may not understand. And it's actually really being on that other end, it's really nice when someone actually says, hold on a minute, I didn't understand that. Can you explain that in terms that I'll understand? And because that makes it so much nicer being on the other end, that actually that person is really involved, they understand and they want to understand. And I know from any medical professional that I know personally, I know that they wouldn't have any problems explaining that and doing that. And I think sometimes, and I've been on both ends, right? And I think sometimes being on the other end, you think that you're going to offend the doctor or that they have too much to do. But, I think their main priority is you as a patient, right? And they want to look after you. So it's important. I think you've brought up a really valid point there that it's great to ask those questions. And if you don't understand, just ask.
Yeah. So like I said, you have to educate yourself. It puts you in more control because, of course, there are people who would rather have it, just not have all that information and go into it and then see what happens, and that's fine. But I'm the kind of person who needs to have all the information from every tool that was going to be used on me. And I kept asking my doctor if I'd have access to air and gas, if there'd be a yoga ball there, if I'd be able to move around in the hospital, and all of that was a yes. And then because of the pandemic, of course, the movement was a little restricted. The way the staff behaved during the birth process was a little different. So all of that got affected, but it was okay as long as all the major things on my list were ticked off. I was okay with the other tiny bits moving around all the time.
Out of curiosity, did you have to wear a mask whilst you were actually naturally laboring?
So there are a couple of tests that they keep doing to check for baby movement and heart rate and stuff like that. During those tests, I had to continue wearing my mask. Okay. But then once I was actively laboring, I think I took it off, and I don't think any nurse had the thing to come up to me and say you have to keep it on. At that point, I think they understood that I was in so much pain I couldn't keep it on. any longer. And anyway, it was a very controlled environment because only one person was allowed in the labor room with me, and that person was a family member.
Right.
So, and the family member kept their mask on.
Okay.
And I was allowed to take it off.
I mean, I guess that makes sense,
Yeah.
right? I was just curious to see what the implementation, and obviously that may have changed again since you gave birth. How old is your son now? Just over 2 months, you said, right?
2 months and 1 week, yeah.
Oh, wow. So he's really young. And so you're at your mom's house right now. And I mean,
yes.
I find this like really amazing that you've got this incredible support network around you, which in those early days can be quite challenging when you come home with a new baby. And obviously your mom's done it before, so that's amazing because you've got some support there. And it's just nice to be able to have a nap in the day, right? And have someone look after the child.
For sure. My first 2 weeks, I think all I did was feed my baby, and then everything else was taken care of by my mom, like diapering, changing, bathing the baby, soothing the baby, everything. I don't know what happened during those first 2 weeks because I was just so zonked out and super tired. I just wanted to take that time to heal. I did still meditate during those days.
Right. And,
but yeah, I was just healing from my C-section and stuff. So it was really good to have my mom around. And I think it's a cultural thing. So I'm Indian, and for us, it's usually the norm that once you give birth, you stay for the first couple of months. Usually it's 40 days, but it's actually kind of up to you how long you want to stay with your parents. So we move back to our mom's house, give birth there, stay there for a couple of, months, just so that, you get used to living with a baby. And it's really great to have your mom, your parents, whoever you can, just a helping hand around, someone who knows that, you need a break in the day from taking care of the baby.
Yeah, I mean, I would have killed for that in those early days, honestly. Like it really, I mean, I'm sure it makes such a big difference when you can actually rest, because babies wake up so often to feed in those early sort of few months.
Exactly. And to be honest, my baby was, I'm not saying my baby was so tiny, but like babies initially are so tiny, you don't know how to handle them. It's just, for first-time moms, it's very overwhelming.
And so are you still at your mom's house right now?
I am.
And are you allowed, are you sort of having visitors or not yet? How do you feel, do you feel comfortable with visitors right now?
Not yet. Neither me nor my husband are comfortable with having visitors over. And I understand that, things have opened up a little bit now, and the restrictions are a little more accommodating. But obviously the virus is still out there. And, some people are still getting affected, even though the numbers have gone down, but it's still very much there. So, and it's just too difficult to, keep track and trace who has touched what and where the person has been. And obviously people are starting to go back to work now. So, there's no way you can track who's come in contact with who. So I think it's just safer stretch it out for another month or two and then see where things are.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable, right? Everyone has their own limitations and their own sort of views and beliefs on these things, and it's whatever works for you. So what has really, how are you feeling right now in terms of, you're probably still healing with your post C-section, you're having to, obviously you're looking after a 2-month-old, you've got this support network, which is great, but how are you sort of feeling as a mom, as a person? How are you coping?
I'm actually good. Like, to be honest, I think there might be glimpses of fear that I have in my dreams. Because obviously I did go under surgery, and, that brings certain, that puts you in a different kind of mental state. And yeah, it was I don't want to say tragic, but it was an experience. So, but it hasn't, handicapped me mentally or emotionally, because like I said, if you can find tools that help you stay positive, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling, whether it's, listening to subliminals, whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's staying with your parents, if you can find anything that keeps you positive, use it.
So you
So yeah.
continued your meditation sort of literally after you gave birth, you continued sort of focusing on the meditation as a daily practice?
Yes, I did.
It's
And then
finding that
focusing
thing.
on things.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say it's finding that thing that you really enjoy and that you can have for yourself, I think is really important after you give birth. For me, it was exercise. And so I made time for exercise. And that was my thing with the sort of 30 minutes or
Yeah, that
45
was your
minutes.
tool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just finding that tool, right? Whatever that is for you. And I think sometimes we focus on what that tool is for society as a whole. And I think it doesn't matter what it is. It may be just sort of sitting down and reading a book for 20 minutes, right? It doesn't really matter what that tool is. It's just doing something for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the lockdown that was after I'd just given birth was kind of a blessing in disguise. Because not having visitors, while it was something that my mom was really excited, about, and she was really looking forward to having, friends and relatives come home and, meet the baby and bring gifts and stuff like that. Even though obviously even I would have enjoyed that, but I was quite okay, with not having visitors come home immediately and crowd our minds and our home with, obviously, I mean, there's nothing negative if you like people coming home and visiting your newborn child. But, like I said, it was a blessing in disguise because it was exclusive time for me to heal, for me to bond, and, to just sleep it off. Like sometimes that's all you need. Like, because obviously your friends and family will visit once things get better, but just use this time because you can't change it. So you might as well, use it positively.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's true because you wouldn't have had that time otherwise. You wouldn't have had that sort of exclusive bonding time if there wasn't an actual enforced lockdown.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, my husband runs his own small business. So for him, there's literally no day off. He only has Fridays off. He's working on Saturdays as well. And even if we go on a holiday or something, he's always still on his phone. There's no like shutting down from, your own business, right? But because of this lockdown, he was home with me for the last month and a half of my pregnancy. And that was an incredible experience because there's literally nothing in the world that could have caused that except for the pandemic, and right after giving birth, my dad, who's also a workaholic, was at home spending so much time with my baby. And even that wouldn't have happened, if it weren't for this current situation. So it was really about, looking at the positive.
So you've had some real good sort of bonding time and time together, which is so lovely, right? You look back in a year's time and you'll think, wow, I managed to get like this child got undivided attention for a good sort of 2 or 3 months.
Exactly. And that was the case at the hospital too, because I don't know, somehow I got really lucky. And that week that I gave birth, there was no other child born. So my 3 days at the hospital, my baby was the only baby in the nursery. I was the only, mother who was being given attention in the maternity ward. So all the medical attention was also there for us.
That's amazing. You've had like VIP treatment. And your baby, your son has had VIP treatment.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm so glad you said that because that's a matter of perspective, right? To feel that this is VIP treatment. I'm not secluded. I wasn't alone. Yeah. This was VIP treatment.
So has anything really surprised you about motherhood? Something that you like didn't expect?
I know how, well, it's something that I did say to myself a couple of days back, and I do want to share it. You know how people tell you when you're about to give birth that motherhood is a full-time job? I don't think it's a full-time job because you can take a break from your job too. At the end of the day, you have a couple of hours done, when you are just going to relax. So motherhood is not a full-time job. It's a lifestyle.
I mean, it's true, actually. It is a lifestyle, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. So. So I guess that, like, even though that you can't take breaks from it, but actually living those first couple of months with your baby and realizing what it means to, not be able to watch your favorite Netflix show or enjoy your coffee without having to keep a ear out for like whether the baby's crying or not. That was my surprise, I guess.
So when you say it's a lifestyle, do you feel that it's your mind, like it's the way you look at it? So it's your mindset in how you're looking at motherhood, rather than it being this, oh, it's a full-time job and I don't get any breaks. You're kind of thinking of it as, oh, this is a lifestyle. This is just now part of how I live my life. And, sometimes I have to attend to certain things which I may not have had to do previously. Is that what you mean by that? Am I understanding?
Yeah, I guess, because obviously in the initial couple of months, at least for the first 6 months, your baby needs your undivided attention, right? Like, even if you have help, even if you have help, you're still always going to be so worried in the first 6 months or so, because you're getting used to the baby's getting used to you, the baby's getting used to the world. So, and you want to do justice to that journey.
Yeah.
So you might have to give up a couple of things, a couple of, luxuries or certain, leisure activities that you used to enjoy. But it's just for a couple of months, right? So that's what helps me get through it.
Yeah, and it's true. I think it's finding that. I don't like to use the word balance, because I think you're right. It's more of an integration, right? Having a child, and then having work life and a social life and a personal life, that all kind of has to be it has to be this dance that all goes together and it just finds its way in. And I think we all strive for this work-life balance where we want to give our children time and then give work time as well. But I really don't think that, I don't think balance is the right term for it. It really is an integration.
Right.
And, for some people, on some days, it may be that you give one thing more time than others. And I think as your child gets a little bit older, those things become more of a...
manageable.
Not just manageable, but something that you have to negotiate as time goes on, because as your child grows, it's slightly different needs, right? As they get older, there's different needs that they need and they require. And I think, especially in those early sort of few months, probably the first 6 months, that undivided attention is really, really sort of all children need it. And I think as a mother, for me, it was really important to also provide that. And I guess it's different. Obviously, some people do have to go back to work much earlier than others. And it's finding what works for you and what makes you happy, and forgetting actually that this is what it should be and this is what the norm should be, right? I think it's really sort of finding what works for you as a person.
Yeah, and I think that becomes easier if, the decision to have a child was your own, or obviously you with your partner. And so don't ever have a child out of just societal pressure or peer pressure, or because someone told you your biological clock is ticking, or, whatever reason. Have it when you're completely mentally prepared to dedicate, some time. And like you said, I love that word, integrate another human into your life. Because there's no other way you're going to be able to do it positively.
It's funny because when we get married, right, we integrate this other person into our life. We don't try and balance that person into our life, right? It really becomes a relationship, and you kind of work together to make time for each other and then make time for your own individual needs as well. But then when you have a child, we somehow feel like there should be a balance.
I know what you mean. Because again, living with your husband, you can communicate. With your baby, you can't, at least for the first year, right? So it's all about giving. That first year is just about giving, right? So I guess that's where it takes a little bit of a toll on some people's mental health.
I think there's nothing wrong with taking time for yourself. If that means getting someone to come and look after your baby, or having your partner take care of the baby, solely take care of the baby for 2 or 3 hours. I know, especially when you're breastfeeding, it's a little bit more challenging because they need to be fed more frequently. And if they're my daughter didn't feed from a bottle, it was really hard to get her to feed from a bottle and breastfeed at the same time. So if that's a challenge, then I totally understand but you still get that sort of 2 hours and really sort of making that time for yourself every so often, even if it's not every day, every other day, or once a week or twice a week, whatever that works for your family. I think that's important because that really gives you that mind space, doesn't it?
Exactly. It gives you a break. And you should be okay to reach out and ask for help, whether it's your husband or your mom or a friend, like someone who, just someone who's been through something similar, who's given birth and, has a child, will understand that you need a break too. And, just find someone who can come and help you out or get paid help. Like, to be honest, anything works at that point.
In terms of like, your son is now just over 2 months old. What are you excited about anything in this coming year? Are you looking forward to anything in particular? Or are you just sort of enjoying what's happening and just sort of going with the flow?
I'm actually just going to enjoy every day, just take it one step at a time. Obviously, he has growth spurts and those are intense and it takes a toll on me mentally and physically. But apart from that, I don't want to, think about too far in the future. I don't want to, have any expectations of what life is going to be with him. Just enjoy it for now.
I think that's, a really positive way to look at it, and really enjoy those, early years, I guess. I mean, people keep telling me, and I'm sure you'll hear the same, and you probably already have heard the same, that, those first 2-3 years go by so quickly, and then when they're a bit older, you'll always want them to be young again. So really enjoy those days.
And I guess it's very easy for parents to start having expectations of their kids, and that's something that I'm going to try and actively avoid. I'm going to have expectations of myself as a mother, but hopefully very few expectations of my baby.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't that I had expectations of my daughter, but I had expectations of myself. And even realigning those expectations were very important for me, just because setting really, really high standards sometimes can mean that you're actually not happy. Like, not that you're unhappy, but that you're constantly like worrying because you've set the bar so high.
Too high.
And so that was really interesting for me to learn personally.
To cut yourself some slack and be okay with not being the perfect mom. Actually, there's nothing called the perfect mom. I think there can only be a loving mother.
We all provide what we need to for our child.
For sure. Yeah. And I've already had a couple of those moments where I've ended up crying because I felt like I was, if I needed to tell someone that I need to take a break from my baby and I need some help, managing things, to feel like I'm loving my baby less. Like, that's what I've felt recently, that if I've had to tell someone that I need, 15 minutes, a 15-minute break, and if I need someone to help me with something, it's not that I love my baby less. It's just that I need to recharge and come back so that I can give my baby my all, right?
That's such an important learning, right? And I think to a degree, I'm sure every mother probably goes through this, because we want to give to our child, and that's understandable. Exactly. But it's okay to take time for yourself and have some me time and recharge your own batteries, because like you said, like, without recharging your own batteries, you can't give.
And then if you're not going to give 100%, it's gonna project in some other negative way.
Sure. And mom guilt is something that we all have to deal with, like, mentally, to process that feeling of mom guilt. I'm still I'm sure there's no solution, but I'm sure that every mother has I know for sure that every mother has to deal with that, the mom guilt. Often it's not actual, like, we shouldn't really be feeling guilty in those times at all. It's just that we need some space and some time.
Exactly. Like I said, like, I know that this is wrong, and I know that I just need to recharge and come back to my baby 100%, but I still can't shake away that feeling, right? But I guess it's really healthy that, moms are able to talk about these things now. And our society and our community is slowly becoming more open to, discussing postpartum health and mental health issues and, things that moms might be facing. And it's not just about, keeping up with that motherly figure where you're all giving and you never need a break. And, by default, you know how to deal with everything that, comes with motherhood.
Do you feel
So, yeah.
that in your society and your sort of community that it's becoming more of a conversation that's happening? Because being raised in the UK, mental health, not saying that mental health was openly talked about when I was younger, but over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I would say that it's become a conversation that's quite commonplace in the UK.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if that's something that you've noticed in your community and culture as well.
I have for sure. Like, I feel like my generation and, my friends who I see going through certain similar circumstances as myself are now more open to discussing these situations, whereas earlier it would be about, keeping up face and like not talking about these things. And obviously we come from a time where postpartum depression was like a myth, like people didn't even believe it was true. Yes, definitely I've seen a shift, in my generation for sure.
That's such a promising thing, right? Because I think it's so important that we do talk about this mental health, and that postnatal depression is a real issue that some mums do have to deal with. And it's totally understandable because of the change in hormones and change in lifestyle. And, it's okay to sort of talk about it and ask for help if you need it, right? There's so many professionals out there that are actually actively helping moms with dealing with this as well.
Yeah. And just having all this knowledge available to us, I guess, if I go back and talk to my mom or my aunts or whoever, my elders, and they'll tell you stuff like, after their birth and during their early motherhood journey, they experience certain things, but they just don't use the word depression. Yeah. And they'll tell you, like their stories will tell you that they suppress so many emotions, and that leaves a void in you. So if they had someone to talk about it as well, things would have been different. So I know for a fact that I've actively reached out to a couple of friends, who are either expecting or are just new moms, and, spoken to them about my experience, so that they'd be a little more comfortable talking about theirs, because it's very important to, share what you're feeling.
I think that's important as well, right? As a mother, to remember that you may not have actively experienced postnatal depression, but you just opening up that conversation with somebody else and asking them how they're doing may just be what they need to just get it off their chest.
Yeah, that's really true.
I think we've talked about so many different things, and we've talked about the positives and obviously some of the lows that you can sometimes feel with motherhood. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end the conversation?
To anyone who's listening, and if you're expecting, my 2 tools were educate and meditate. And that's my pregnancy and early motherhood mantra.
It has a ring to it as well. That's incredible. I'm definitely going to share that mantra. And I think I'll take some of your wisdom with me as well, because I think it doesn't really matter where you are in your stage of motherhood. I know that's relevant for me as well right now.
Yeah. And I got to learn so many things about you. I love the fact that we talked about how we integrate a child into our life.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And I'd like to thank you once again for making the time today. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. That was Maria, who is a marketing professional, and she runs a blog called Calorie Collector. Go check her out. It's all about food, culture, and motherhood. You can find all her links below in the show notes. And don't forget to leave us a review and a rating. I truly appreciate it.